fickle soul.
All right, we've got issues here as well. You know, it could be a make or break weekend for a super committee deal. Republican leaders are said to be reaching out to members of the debt committee right now, trying to pound out a deal. Now, as that deadline nears, these two lawmakers signing onto a bipartisan letter telling the super committee to come together and do some supersized cuts, as in $4 trillion in cuts over the next 10 years. Republican Congressman Michael Grimm and Democratic Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, they both represent the fine state of New York. Congresswoman, to you first. You said, well, you have to put everything on the table, including Democrats being willing to look at entitlements. Congressman, you had said Republicans have to be open to revenue enhancements or closing loopholes, credits and the like, to move this ball forward. First off to you, Congressman, what reaction have you gotten?
Well, I think everyone knows what needs to be done. The Simpson-Bowles report called for both. The Gang of Six, all the efforts, every economist from McCain's Zandy to Democratic economists, everyone's calling for a bold, balanced approach that looks at both revenues and spending cuts. And we can't continue with where we are now, where 15% of GDP is revenue and 25% of GDP is, no, I've got it, 15% is revenue and 25% is expenditures. We need to bring it more in line.
I have no idea what you're saying, but bottom line, seriously, what you all are open to is everything, putting everything on the table, pretty much, right?
Absolutely.
All right, Congressman, you're of the same mind. Now, there are many in your party, Congressman, who say revenue enhancement, closing a loophole is a tax hike. You're going to pay dearly for supporting that.
I was elected because people believed that I would have the ability to bring bold leadership to the table. That's what this is about. I have always put my country first, and that's really what I heard the other day when we had a bipartisan meeting as a result of signing this letter. Who's willing to put their country?
How many signed this letter?
100 members of the House. And
how many Democrats, how many Republicans?
50 and 50. And I think that's exactly, you know, there's two issues here. Number one, can we come together and do what needs to be done to build our country again? And that means Republicans and Democrats alike. That's one. Number two, can we take the bold moves we have to if we want to get our debt under control?
So which means there are those who are going to argue in your party, you know, you mess with tax credits and the rest. That's a tax hike. You obviously are trying to see beyond that. Congressman, there are many in your party say you mess with entitlements, even adjusting formulas, whatever. You're all but throwing Granny off the cliff. You guys are trying to get beyond that. What reaction from fellow Democrats, Congresswoman, are you getting?
Well, the letter was bipartisan. Some support it and others don't.
What about the president?
Oh, the president he couldn't be clear. He's called from day one for a balanced approach with expenditures, revenues, cuts.
He's not been clear. So on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
And he's very clear in job growth.
He has been for reining the growth of those programs in?
He has been for a balanced approach which looks at revenues and cuts and job growth.
He expressed support to you on this.
He's expressed support to the nation. He couldn't be clear on it. He's not part of this committee.
The same president I am, because I haven't got that. Maybe you have. But in other words, you think he would be open to this?
I think he would, absolutely.
Okay. Congressman, what about the more conservative members of your party?
Oh, certainly it's an issue. There's no question about it. And I'm the first to admit I signed a pledge not to raise taxes. However, I think that if we lowered marginal rates, and let's think about this, 51% of Americans don't pay any taxes at all. I don't think that's right. I think that everyone that can should have some skin in the game. Even if it's another 20% of Americans should have some investment in our country. So if they're going to pay taxes for the first time, they should have been all the time. So I don't look at that as breaking my pledge. The other thing is if there are onerous loopholes, real onerous loopholes that are being taken advantage of by companies that are not paying practically any taxes, we should close them. That's common sense. That's not violating a pledge. I think we have to get past rhetoric and actually bring leadership to the table.
All right,
and that's
so
why we're
whatever the differences in opinion that people are going to look at in both sides of the ledger here, Congresswoman and man, you're doing $4 trillion. That whatever you've got is enough to shave the growth in spending by $4 trillion over 10 years, which is roughly 4 times the amount the super committee is looking at, right?
Yes, but it's also looking at revenues, raising revenues. We actually passed.
Going back to, I guess, I can see you trying to win over your base, which is fine.
And job growth.
And job growth. What percentage are cuts in spending versus revenues, whatever you want to call it?
Well, right now, our revenues are at a 70-year low in terms of the GDP.
In this mix,
15% of the GDP, and 25% is expenditure. So it's way out of whack. You've got to get it more in line.
Is this man the real Congressman?
I think it comes down to some actually very basic math. We know that we're living beyond our means. So if we don't cut, nothing is going to work. At the same time, we also know that we have to stimulate our economy, grow the GDP, because the debt is too massive not to do both.
Well,
so
guys,
it's a combination in finding that balance.
I give you both credit. You went out a limit. No, it's really, I do. I give you both credit. The only way we're going to move the ball forward is to move the ball forward. Right. So
we also need job growth. We also need you need a three-legged stool, and job growth has to be part of it.
More legs. But guys, thank you all very much.
And expenditures
I admire your
guts and job growth,
and that you're certain now election losers as a result. I'm kidding. When we come back, the Greek Prime Minister fighting for his political life while the